Drink responsibly.
I feel like I find a lot of inspiration in food. Thanks for tuning in.
I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I am Tony Rousseau, no relation, and we're here at the Crowbar in Berlin, an excellent secret spot. And as far as I know, you're listening to Day Drinking on Delmarva, a look at life and culture on the Delmarva Peninsula.
And if you're listening to the podcast, nothing is amiss. If you're watching us online, I played the wrong opener. How about that?
I didn't know if that. So one of the things that Todd and I have been talking about for the last couple of weeks that we're bad at doing, and probably will continue to be bad at doing, is like cross promotional stuff. Like, I'm going to mention this now. I have another podcast coming out. My Beer with Strangers podcast is coming out, and it's a history podcast. And it'll be out on Friday of this week. And when it comes out, I cut in a commercial for the Toddcast. And we've been saying that with the different things that we do on the Toddcast, Day Drinking on Delmarva. And what we've been saying is that different things that we do, we're going to try to put our own kind of commercials in, just because, you know, if you like this thing, then maybe you like some of the other things we do. So for the podcast listener who will not get to hear that commercial, can you talk about it and tell them where they can find that show?
Actually, yes. And there's new episodes out. That's basically just our Good Clean Quarantine self vlog ish style videos that Natalie and I have been doing. And the most popular of all the videos that we've done have been the cooking videos that Natalie does. And we just put out a new cooking video for butternut squash lasagna, which is amazing.
Ah, well, I'll definitely have to watch that. And I'm not even kidding. We have butternut squashes and we're trying to figure out what to do with them.
Oh, good. It really is excellent. I mean, it's
I've had zucchini lasagna. I would expect it's similar.
Yeah, maybe so.
You don't know what you're talking about. So much to get to this week. But before we get to all the things that we have to get to, let's acknowledge our sponsors. Let's talk about our sponsors. This week, I am sponsored by an old favorite of mine, and this is the Gibson. And the Gibson is essentially a martini with a cocktail onion instead of an olive. And this isn't the first time Gibson has sponsored this production. But when I talk about my one cool thing, it's going to be one of the stories as I'd like to talk about is I made a gin drink, and I was going to make it today, and I just didn't have the energy because it was kind of involved. So I started and I'm like, yeah, screw it. Let's have a Gibson, kids. So Gibson is the Tony Randall of my drinking.
Yep. And my Tony Randall is the Pilsner. My fridge is usually always stocked with Burley Oak's wonderful Pilsner. That's 4.20% alcohol. Haha, get it? And it is the Pilsner American Pilsner Lager.
And if you would like to sponsor us, feel free. You can reach out to us and we'll drink whatever you send us to drink. So if you know somebody at I don't know, Evan Williams, maybe, we don't have to be high end here. I'm not too proud.
Yeah. What would be your like nice, not like best sponsor, but like nice to have sponsor, like literally someone sending you a bottle, a handle a month. Well, you have to drink it once a week.
I will tell you that whoever the sponsor was, their booze doesn't come in handles.
It only comes in airplane bottles.
I would, I'm a big fan of, look how red my face is. I'm a big fan of Akatoshan Scotch.
Okay.
They do one that's called American. So yeah, no, Akatoshan, you can send me whatever you want. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say anything bad about it. I haven't. I've had, there was a Scotch. I'm not going to mention the name. It was a different Scotch that I bought the $48 bottle instead of the $53 bottle. And man, I wish I had spent that extra $5. It's like the difference was just shocking. It was absolutely shocking. And that's happened with other whiskeys to me before too, American whiskeys as well. But yeah, so yeah, if anybody from Akatoshan is out there, definitely, I know we have a lot of Scottish listeners.
It's funny. Yeah, right. It's funny because I've always claimed to be a Woodford Reserve man, but since like just having Bullet as my go-to, I have Woodford Reserve, and I'm like, whoa, this is really smoky. You know?
Yes,
So,
you're forgetting how good it tastes is what
right,
I would
right.
say. My criticism, and actually I'm passing this on from my wife, her criticism of Bullet versus Woodford is Bullet tastes a little salty to her. And
Mm.
I had never gotten that kind of sense of it, but once she put a name to it, I'm like, all right, yeah. I mean, it's an astringent. It's part of the astringency of the alcohol. But when she said salty, because we'd been drinking Woodford Reserve and then we had some Bullet, and she's like, this is salty. And I'm like,
And
oh, wow, it is salty.
now I'm gonna taste for it. And you're a makers person, right?
Well, now broadly speaking, I'm not. I mean, I'll drink Maker's Mark.
Maybe
I like Woodford Reserve. I keep Woodford Reserve in the house.
maybe it was Zach over at Bethany Blues who was talking about how Makers was like the most middle of the road.
Oh yes, no,
And a
I
bit
agree with
sweet.
that. I could have said that, and yes, it is a little sweet.
Okay. This is why we call the show Day Drinking on Delmarva, because it's noon. It's 1:00 on a Wednesday, and
We're ready to go.
Where we're talking about booze.
So this week we're going to talk about all of the kind of back to school things. But before we do that, actually, even as part of that, I would like to talk about my one cool thing.
Mhm.
Each week we talk about one cool thing that happens as a result of or to us living here on the peninsula. This week's one cool thing for me is I watched Harry Potter with my daughter.
Just the
We
one,
watched
right?
we watched all of the movies. We got up at 5:00 in the morning and we went to bed at about 1 a.m. And we watched the movies back to back to back for the entire evening. And it was so much fun. For me, these arbitrary goals you set for yourself, like I'm going to do this weird, I'm going to
Right.
watch 19 hours of movies for no good reason at all. I love to do things like that. It's I like to do things that I can tell stories about. It's not
Right.
different from that. Like I went for my right before my 40th birthday, we did breakfast, lunch, and dinner trip that we'd been planning since we were in high school. We had breakfast in Philadelphia, lunch in Manhattan, and then dinner in Boston. And I bring that up, and I can tell that story to anyone
Yeah.
who hasn't heard it yet. That's a fun story to tell. It's a fun thing
Yeah.
to have in your head. The Harry Potter thing, very, very much the same. Only because you can say, "Hey, I sat down one day and watched all the Harry Potter movies in a row, and this is what it was like." And it was fun. I liked Harry Potter. I mean, I guess that's not saying very much. But one of the things we also did, so Harry Potter's birthday, according to the internet, is July 31st.
Okay.
And my daughter's birthday is August 1st.
Oh.
So this, according to the internet, was Harry Potter's 40th birthday. And so she's getting ready to go back to college. She left on the 2nd. So she's gone. I'm back to being an empty nester again, which is a thing unto itself.
Right.
But
Right.
we decided to celebrate her birthday by watching these movies. So we watched the movies. We had not an unprecedented amount of garbage, but I
A
felt
fair
bad.
amount of garbage.
I felt bad about myself by 9:45, and we still had more than 12 hours of movie watching left. Our plan had been actually to get sushi because she liked sushi and she wanted to have some before she left. But by like 4:00 in the afternoon, I'm like, I don't want any more food.
Right. Right.
So we moved the sushi party to the next day. But we also got to make a drink called a Gillyweed Cocktail.
Yes,
And
I saw that.
can recommend this, and this is why it's relevant, and this is why I'm drinking a Gibson. So a Gillyweed Cocktail is a equal parts gin and coconut water,
Interesting.
muddled with mint and garnished with a cucumber and a splash of tonic water, and it is quite tasty. It's a little labor intensive is probably the only reason people aren't drinking these by the pitcherful
Right.
in the summertime, because it's really kind of my new summertime drink. Like I said, I didn't want to go out to the garden to get mint, and that's why I'm drinking a Gibson because we keep the cocktail onions in the refrigerator.
That is brilliant.
But yes, I can highly recommend the cocktail. You can look it up online. Gillyweed Cocktail. It's
The Gillyweed.
just a nice summer drink.
Hey, and that's a good transition into the fact that I got the Instagram up and running again. And if you were paying attention, on August 1st, on the Day Drinking on Delmarva Instagram, was a story of you and your daughter drinking the Gillyweed.
Oh, that's how exciting. I thought I must have seen it and thought it was me.
And the fun thing is also that, of course, the Gillyweed sounds like a Harry Potter drink anyway. So
it is.
Oh, right, exactly. Precisely.
All right, I'm sorry. I missed that one.
I did too.
We're going to school now, though, and so that's how my story ends. I dropped her off at college. Right. I have to say, if I may, and I may, because I'm going to say it, Frostburg seems really well prepared.
Yeah.
I was astounded. I did not see one kid without a mask on. They're wearing them when they're walking in pairs across the commons. Mm-hmm. If they're outside, they're wearing a mask. If they're having meetings, they're socially distant and wearing a mask. And these are just all the so some of the sports people, and my daughter's an RA, so some of the RAs and they're training. And this is the plan. This is the word on the street.
Yeah.
And I think it might be the best way to get kids to behave when they're at college. If you don't behave, we all have to go home.
Yeah.
You have been home since March.
If you want to
go back, feel free to not wear a mask.
Right.
But
you're going to send everybody back.
And if we're all super careful, we get to stay here. And if we're not, you get to go back to your room and your parents asking you if they want you to help study or whatever, And I think that is a really strong incentive, especially for incoming freshmen.
Yeah.
I mean, college kids from last year are pissed that they got kicked out or whatever, and they didn't get to finish and they're going to make an effort. But if I didn't get to go to my graduation and I'd been sitting in a house with my parents since March,
right.
I can assure you I would do whatever it took to be able to go just live someplace else for 4 months. So I feel a lot better about it having been than I did going, I guess is what I want to say.
Oh, well, that is good. And you're one of the lucky ones where your kids and you actually get along too. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are lots who are not doing doing movie marathons just for the story of it with their parents, with their roommates. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing, and that brings us to my one cool thing, which is in preparation for Brody going back into the 10th grade here in Worcester County. We actually signed him up for. He hasn't been working. He had a job opportunity that was right here in town, and we felt good about it, and it kind of got delayed, so he hasn't been working a whole lot, and he wants to keep busy. Anyway, we got him signed up for a music production class through a company that is called Monthly. So it's a month-long class, and it seems to be something like masterclass, but geared toward more creative, because the class that we signed him up for is music production. And it seems pretty cool. And he's been very excited about it. And it is, so like, you don't have to, but it's recommended that you sign on every day. There's activities, there's peer review, so it's, it's a new model, or it's, I guess, an existing model that people are continuing to improve upon, of collaborative learning and doing it over the internet in the safety of your own home and that sort of thing. And this for me has real world implications, because through this class, he's going to be producing 3 songs. So this is, part of the activity that he has to do for this class. And I get to use those 3 songs in in our work. So it only makes sense for me to, build a good worker that can that can make some product for me, some content that we can use.
Yeah, I tricked my daughter into writing 2 whole blog posts for me the entire 6 months she was here. So, I mean, excellent. Good luck with that.
Good.
What I can say is one of the things that you could use him for, and feel free to exploit this completely. I have another podcast. I mentioned my Beer with Strangers podcast is coming out.
Mhm.
I decided I wanted some music for it, and I
Oh.
don't know if you know this or not, but Spotify is getting very, very, very interested in people who are violating music rights. Like if you play too much of a song on your show and it's on Spotify, they will take your whole show down.
I've not heard that.
Yeah, it's a big deal, especially among people who do like music podcasts. But what I discovered is in GarageBand, I just took loops and I just strung a bunch of loops together and like, oh look, it sounds like This Is American Life. But what if someone did it well?
Yeah, imagine.
Because mine, I listened to the show and I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like not bad.
Right.
You're not like, what was he thinking? You're like,
it's not unlistenable.
Correct. Now, if you're a music professional, you're like, why does he keep using that loop and fading it in and out?
Yeah.
But it's just background music, so you don't really notice it so much.
Right.
But that, like, scoring podcasts is gonna be a thing soon and in a big way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like like I said, people are coming down really, really hard on rights people. So being able to crank out and I don't mean crank out in a bad way, but being able to produce half-hour clips, being able to like think of like a movie, right?
Mhm.
And then you
sure.
so you hand a kid a podcast and say, all right, make music that goes with this half hour, and they do it. And that is something that is a valuable commodity right now, and an industry that will increasingly be important. So I'm very excited for him. I mean, I don't know if he wants to make podcast music, but I do know that that's something that people are gonna start doing. Like lots of the better podcasts, music composed by, and it's usually like the husband or the nephew or the wife, just somebody who makes music in the house, just listens to the show and plays along with it. And pow, you have you have a background track that no one can complain about, and it's original music and it's interesting, but not distracting.
Right. Well, and this is exactly what I said to Brody before. He was very excited to show me the chord progression that he came up with. And he's definitely a music nerd. He, watches videos on theory and, all of the stuff that he will produce out of this class is going to be very, lo-fi kind of background ambient. And that's what it means, or that's the world that I've been working in for a while now because of videos. So it sounds like Spotify is going through that experience that Facebook went through at some time ago, where they were shutting down videos because like you were dancing at a club and you could hear the background noise.
Right. Well, there's also something a little bit more nefarious about it because Spotify sells music.
Yes.
And so they don't want people to have their own quote radio shows on Spotify where they're playing music that people should be listening to on Spotify. And
it does make sense as well, because like, even though I always talk about how the importance of royalty-free music, it's royalty free. It's not free. Like I pay a subscription to a great service. I'll name it artlist.io. And so I pay a monthly and have unlimited downloads, and I have found some really good music. In fact, one royalty-free song came up on there, and I kind of feel like the artist missed the boat. I mean, hopefully he's getting compensated for it. It was royalty-free. I used it in one of Kevin Dunworth's motorcycle videos, and it was popping up in commercial after commercial, like legit commercials with what's his name, who played Aquaman, was in
Right.
a hat commercial and online, and used the same song. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is good. So the point being, Brody, you're talking about like cranking out songs, is they're like there could be a lucrative thing for that, for especially somebody who has the tools that we have and the knowledge that he's amassed just from watching countless YouTube videos.
Right. My experience with that is, there's a podcast that I sometimes listen to called The Movies That Made Me. And recently, Edgar Wright was on it. Edgar Wright made Shaun of the Dead and Baby Driver. I don't know if you saw Baby Driver.
I love Baby Driver.
Okay. And so he's very into music, as you can tell from having seen Baby Driver.
Right.
And they were talking about movies, and they were talking about, like, they recognize when people are using free music, like they have heard all of the free music ever made, you know? And so they're like, because I guess that's what you do in film school. Yeah. And so it was really interesting they started naming movies that, mostly George Romero movies, that all had, like, this was in the George Romero movie and this was in Shaun of the Dead. And it was like, and they have like alternate names.
The songs do, or
the songs have alternate names for having been used in these movies, like use the Romero stinger or something like that. And so, yeah, there's not just a living to be made in doing interstitial music and stuff like that. It's a way that you can, be really, really, really creative and get rewarded for it, kind of over and over again.
Hey, thanks for Stephanie Fowler tuning in. She actually wrote something. She's working on a video and had our friend Nate Clendenning make original music for the book promo video she's doing. But what was that word you used? Interstellar. What does that mean? What does that mean?
That kind of the background changeover music in the middle. Okay. It's not quite background music. It's music that is used intermittently during the show. Like if you listen to this week's Beer with Strangers, my This American Life, it's like a bass guitar and like a jing 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 jing. It's very simple. No, that's taken. I didn't want to be too referential. And I discovered something last night that made me feel a little bit, or maybe this morning, that made me feel a little bit like a music nerd that I'm not. But did you know? No, you did not. That Swan Lake and the Harry Potter theme song sound a lot alike.
Oh, really?
And I was speaking about this with my wife. We've been trying to have more, like, let's sit down and have like an intellectual type of conversation. Let's talk about art and music and books, instead of, can you help me scratch my back or whatever awful things you talk about when you've been married for a long time.
And it's been
right. But it's been really, really nice. We've just been sitting and we've been kind of like exploring different ideas and things. And so when you do that, if I can help you get through the apocalypse, when you do that on purpose, those conversations also start to happen more organically, which is how we found ourselves taking apart Swan Lake and the Harry Potter theme song. And what was really interesting to me about it is that I don't know if you know this, but I looked it up, so I know it now. But John Williams wrote the Harry Potter theme music.
Right.
John Williams probably has heard Swan Lake before.
Probably.
So now I don't know anything about Swan Lake, but I wonder if it's like The Ugly Duckling. And if it is like The Ugly Duckling, is that why John Williams chose it to do the Harry Potter theme?
Well, and you had so I'm going to insert a story that real world experience that I had in one of the videos that we made a couple years ago that ended up being a very popular video. It was when Game of Thrones was out, and
I recall that.
It was summer. We did the Summer is Coming video. It was a lot of fun, but the music makes it, right? And I reached out to my friend Kyle Downs, who is a professional music producer. Interesting, he works for like the Library of Congress, like restoring audio these days. But I said, can you make me something that sounds, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to use
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
the actual song, but I need it to sound a lot like the song. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I come to find out later that he had actually, like, he hadn't watched the show. Like he wasn't really familiar with the music, but it was one of those, like, listen to it, it's like, okay, low horn and then some strings and some swelling. So, and he did a great job, and it really worked out well, royalty free, of course. And I didn't pay him anything. Maybe I should have.
Well, then you should double his royalties at least.
Double his royalties. But then
wait, what'd you make? 12, 15 million on that video? You should throw him a couple 100,000.
I'll pass along a couple of the views that we got. But yeah, so it's probably like John Williams sitting down with whatever director, and for that one in particular, and
Christopher Columbus. I don't know if we're allowed to watch Harry Potter anymore, so it's weird. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, right. But yeah, so like, were they like, I want it to be like, Swan Lake, but moodier, or something like that. And then he's like, oh, I got this in my back pocket.
I would expect that. There aren't very many directors who go to John Williams and say, this is what I want.
That's true. Very true.
Because the last one said, no, that Jaws thing sounds stupid. And we saw how that turns out.
Right.
That's a true story. I don't know if you know that or not.
No, really?
Yeah. Spielberg heard the dun-na, that he's like, you're fucking with me, right? And he's like, no, it's going to be great. It's like, that's the dumbest music I've ever heard in my life.
Man.
So after that, I think
Spielberg is an idiot.
Yeah, right. So after that, when John Williams says, here's the score, you say, all right, guys, play it. I don't think you dither about. But I should have done some of that research today, but I didn't know we'd be talking about it. But feel free to check at home, and whether or not Swan Lake is the same thing as the Ugly Duckling. I feel like it is.
I think so. That sounds familiar.
Because I saw Black Swan, and I didn't understand it. But I think that might have been. Did you see the movie Black Swan?
You know what? I didn't.
Oh.
I want
to
understand it. If that counts.
It felt... Here's a 10-year-old review of The Black Swan by Tony Russo. It felt very, very pretentious. It was made for people.
It was like an art house piece.
No. It wasn't interesting. It was for people who are really into ballet. And if you don't know what the ballet world is, it's like...
Well, that's kind of cool, though.
I guess. Did you see the movie Kingpin?
Yes. The bowling. Yeah.
You can enjoy that without knowing everything you need to know about bowling.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need to know how the bowling underworld works to be able to enjoy Kingpin. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't been a competitive ballet dancer, with the exception of, the erotic parts, there's really nothing in Black Swan for you.
Right.
The end.
Good. That's the end. 10 years. Let's read it. A new segment. I watched a movie 10 years ago.
10-year-old movie reviews.
Here's my thoughts.
I do want to touch on the storm real quick before we go.
Okay.
I don't know if did you guys, we got hit significantly here in Delmar, which is why I was curious how things went down there.
Well, we lost a handful of branches. I'm doing a project of rebuilding the roofs, so it was very poor timing to have exposed roofs on the shed and what will hopefully be the greenhouse. But we made out okay. I mean, there's a big pile of branches, but nothing severe. But was there an actual tornado that?
I believe there was a tornado a couple of blocks from my house.
And wow.
I think that is, we didn't have power at all yesterday.
Oh boy.
And then later on when here's the thing that you have to remember when you run out of power. If you run out and buy beer, also run out and buy ice.
Yeah.
I came out of the liquor store. I'm like, where the hell am I going to put this? And rather than go back in, I went someplace else to buy the ice
because you were too embarrassed.
And so, yeah. And on our way back, we looked at the street where the work was being done. And there was a telephone pole that was cracked in half, hanging suspended in the middle of the street between
Right.
the other wires and the wires that had formerly held it up. And I was given to understand that that's where the hurricane touched down, and it took out like 3 telephone poles. It cracked them like little twigs.
Little toothpicks. You mean
My
a tornado from the hurricane?
Yes.
Yep.
Or a hurricane for the tornado. I don't know
Yeah.
how. I don't think their names are as important to them as they are to us.
That's a very good point.
My daughter's still without power here in Delmar, and maybe until like the weekend. So
Really?
there's a bunch of damage here.
Oh boy.
But
Well, I'm sorry for that.
One of the things that was fun about it is it was a beautiful day yesterday, so we got to just look at the fish all day. And
Right.
the apocalypse prepared us for this hurricane/tornado,
Mhm.
hurricane and tornado, in a way that we couldn't have imagined.
Right.
Whereas like all the power went out, the internet was down, and we're like, all right, well, we can start drinking.
Yeah.
And so I went and I got some beer,
We're
and we went and we
prepared.
sat in the backyard and drank until the lights came back on.
Yeah.
And then we went to bed.
See, if everybody could play the long game with this pandemic and just follow that advice, just shut the lights, and when Fauci says it's okay, we'll turn the lights back on.
Turn it back on and everything will be fine.
We'll just drink until then.
Right. All right. Well, we are all out of time, which is probably just as well. But before we go all the way, I want to remind you to please, you can visit us on our place on the internet. What is that?
Destination Delmarva or the Instagram?
Instagram.
It's Day Drinking on Delmarva. Instagram. Give us a like, give us a follow, post your pictures and tag us, and we'll put you on our story. It's fun. Everybody likes day drinking.
And everybody's better at it now than they used to be. You can find me on the internet at by Tony Russo on Twitter. And where can we find Todd?
I am no longer on Facebook. No, I'm still there. But Todd DeHart.
You put things on Facebook still?
Not well.
Oh, I'm not accusing you. I haven't seen, so I don't know.
No, not a whole lot. A lot of just shares and going on for work. Definitely taking your just kind of like one-way communication on that platform. I actually might get on to this is one-way communication right now. I might get on Twitter because I just have random thoughts that I want to just share, and that seems to be the place to do it.
It would be nice to have you, because I'm very lonely on Twitter. No one listens to anything I say.
Oh, good. Maybe I'll do that. I'll do that for a week. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, that's all I got for this week. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, remember, until next time at the beach,
it's happy hour whenever you say it is. Cheers.